Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lore You Know. Episode something or other, but we're talking about
20
Hollowfaust today.
20.
Yeah.
20 something.
We're on part 2 of Hollowfaust, but before we get into that, I just want to give a quick shout out to Onyx Path, who without this, we would be completely pointless in talking about this stuff because it wouldn't be 5e related. And because of Onyx Path, blah, 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 my brain is not quite on yet. I have not had enough coffee. But I am about to post a link to the current Kickstarter on... Well, Kickstarter.
On Kickstarter.
The current campaign is what I meant to say. On Kickstarter for Dead Man's Rust.
Right now as we start, we're at $13,888 with 232 backers. Let's see if we get any more as a result of this little talk we're going to do for the next hour and a half, however long we end up chatting.
Yeah. If we could see that would be amazing. Go do that. Link is in the chat if you're watching live. If it is not, if you're watching it later, it'll be in the show notes on YouTube. And once the campaign is done, you can still hop over to the Kickstarter to kind of keep track on how things are going. So back now to get the... They're releasing most of the game to the backers.
Well, the pre-edited pre-final,
right.
To be fair.
And then,
yeah.
Hello, good to see you today, friend. So yeah, it's you even though like the dates may seem far out in the future, it's that way because I mean we had this COVID thing. I don't know if anyone's heard about this.
Yeah.
That has really kind of messed up the print industry. A lot of Kickstarters are like, when are we gonna get our books out? Who knows?
The book has been written. I know this for a fact because Fran worked on it, and she finished her part back in before we started working on Frostlands of Fenrilik. So it tells you how long. Although Frostlands came out a lot faster because it was a much shorter thing. So I think that was May, June, late spring, early summer. But and then the art has to come in, and the art's still in process, the editing's still in process, the formatting takes forever. So there's still more work to do, but the content, the meaty parts are there, and it's massive. I've seen little teasers about it because of Fran's working on it and I signed the NDA, so I can't talk about any of them. But all I can say is it's a huge book. And they did release parts of chapter 1 and part of the first part of the appendix, and including surprisingly the teeny tiny contribution I made to this book, which is actually a contribution I made to a previous book that went into this book, which was, a ranger thing, but just exciting to see just that 30.
Travis.
Oh my God, 31. This isn't the content that just released. 31 different tribes in the Broadreach Forest, or clans in the Broadreach Forest. Each one having a unique NPC or two, unique story hook, unique quest goal. It's insane. Yeah. So, and that's just this one, like in the map. That's this tiny area of like, I don't know, 50 square miles or something. Maybe 100 square, not even 100 square miles, like 100 miles by like 20 miles. It's the north edge of the Hornsaw Forest. So called the Broadreach Horizon. And like just that little section alone, I was like, holy crap, that's a ton. Fran wrote one of those 31 clans. Yeah.
And Travis just said in chat that the final draft deadline for the meaty part of the book was July 31st. So that's all done.
Yeah.
It's Travis is the line developer for Scarredlands, and like you would obviously know Sarah, but like the man has now stepped in and said, not that it had to be a man.
You know what I mean.
The person, right?
The lead. Yeah. So it's like left to do is like art and I don't know, maps and stuff, but art assets, layout, all this stuff, and backer content, right? Because there are stretch goals that allow backers to do stuff too.
Absolutely.
So they'll be put that in. But anyway,
So the one other shout out before we get started.
Oh,
if you're watching this live, today is Black Friday in the United States and in other parts of the world. Everyone's doing their sales. I'm not going to throw a bunch at you, but one of my affiliate links is Found Familiar Coffee. If you have not had their coffee before, it is amazing, and they have all of these D&D artists do their covers, and they really promote their artists really well, and I just have always enjoyed supporting them. I'm going to throw a affiliate link in chat. Everything is 15% off today, and if you use the code WHPUBS, WHPUBS, you get an extra 10% off. So head over and get coffee. Coffee.
And if you want to spell to create coffee,
I mean, that
and
would
you
be the
picked up,
only
and
spell
whether
I've
or
ever
not
made.
you picked up Frostlands of Fenrilik, I just put out a book last week that includes a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition spell called first level spell called Create Coffee. It's just all, of course, it says way too many things for a first level spell, but it's not overpowered yet. It is just you can do lots of things with it. Check out Yenny's journal on Drive-Thru RPG as well. So I just had to do that segue because you handed it to me.
Right? that is the most perfect segue ever. There is
and
the
Frostlands
link
is on sale right now for Black Friday. Ooh.
Oh yeah, I did see that this morning. I keep meaning to check out what it is. Oh yes, hot brown morning potion. First of all, Travis, you get inspiration the next time you play D&D for referencing Dragon Prince.
Hot brown
Hooray.
morning potion is I saw that in something else. I actually literally just called it Create Coffee. But I have seen hot brown morning potion and other things. I saw it just the other day. And I was like, that's kind of like my Create Coffee, but not really, because my Create Coffee does more than that. Because it actually does damage. Not a lot of damage, but it will do damage if you drop it on someone's head, and you can just fuck with people with it, and it also like removes fatigue, but you can get addicted to it. It can cause psychic damage if you drink too much of it. Anyway,
I'm not addicted to coffee.
I, as a former coffee addict, it's a thing.
It's true. It's so true. All right, so that's all of our spiels. Hollowfaust.
So this is super relevant to Dead Man's Rust, as we probably mentioned last week, because a big area of Dead Man's Rust and of the Hornsaw is Glividotel, and they originate in Hollowfaust. There's a huge connection between so you kind of have to talk about Hollowfaust before you can get into the rest of it anyway. So we're just a little bit behind. But sorry about the surgery. Anyway, couldn't help it. So Hollowfaust, where were we? Last week we talked about the history.
Yep. So we're in modern day Hollowfaust.
Modern day Hollowfaust. Which go ahead.
I was gonna say, which, I mean, it doesn't really have like a long history, so it's not like it's not like Shelzar, but a lot of things have happened, and so starting today-ish, this is what the city looks like. Yeah,
I know that the new lore, old lore, new lore doesn't really contradict anything. So this pretty much all fits into the new lore, minus maybe a couple of small changes, which I've got some feedback about. So let's first talk about the city itself. So you've got basically four kinds of they kind of categorize people who live there or who are there into four groups of people, and it's very much got this sort of, I don't want to say caste because you can move between the groups, but definitely a cultural, like, are you this or that, kind of feel, and the laws are different for these other different groups of people or unpeople, because there's really 5 groups. So they say there's 4, but really there's 5. You've got the guildsmen, who are basically the necromancers. They're about 1/10 of the population. Not 1% of the population. Yeah, 1 in 100 people who live there are members of the guild. There's 7 high guilds, 7 basically guilds. Not all of them are necromancers, but all of them are necromancer adjacent. And they're basically the aristocracy. You can become one, though, if you show magical talent or talent in one of the other related fields. You could conceivably join the guild if you show up and show off your stuff, and if they think you're worthy, they'll bring you in and train you. To be a member of the guildsman, though, you have to be journeyman level or higher. So the apprentices don't really count as guildsmen yet, but they're still involved and whatnot. So that's group 1. They have the most privileges and they can get away with the most shit. And then group number 2 are what are called the retainers. They're the people who are allowed into the Underfaust, which is the city has got 3 districts, and where the necromancers live is the Underfaust. They're basically city officials, commanders of the various guard organization, bodyguards of the necromancers, consorts, close friends, whatever. They're the people that the necromancers work with day to day. And they're basically, that level is given to them so that they can have access to the Underfaust area without special exceptional permissions or one-time things, or being under guard the entire time or whatever. The next category is citizens, which is almost everybody else. They're basically the people who live in the city. You are a citizen, whether either if you're born there, you're just automatically a citizen, or if you get naturalized. The easiest way of which is to join the militia. So if you're like a mercenary or an adventurer or whatever, and you join the city and it's like, I want to become a citizen, they're like, join our military, and you can be a citizen and you can serve in their military for a few years and then conceivably retire and live in Hollowfaust. Why would you want to do that? Hollowfaust is creepy. We'll get to that. It's not as creepy as you think. Finally, there's visitors, which is basically people who aren't citizens who are going through the city. That's your adventurers. That's your traders, mercenaries, whoever, who just come in and out. Why are these people treated differently than citizens? Well, the law is not on your side, and I'll get into this later, but I've made the joke to my players of, if you're visiting Hollowfaust, make sure to retain a lawyer as you enter the city. This is not a joke. Make sure to retain a lawyer as you enter the city, because if you break the law in the wrong way, bad things will happen. Even if it's not your fault because of their laws, and it's kind of nuts. So yeah, this is visitors. Then finally, the 5th category that isn't really mentioned explicitly, but it is truly a 5th group, are the undead, who are probably the largest population in Hollowfaust. Not that they're mucking about necessarily. They're not really. You don't really interact with them very much, but they serve as both beefing up the military as shock troops in the military, but they're also the servant class. Unique to Hollowfaust, there is really no solid lower class, which is, I think, cool, because you don't, in terms of unskilled labor, you don't need any, because you've got this skeleton who will do it for you. They're not super bright, but they obey orders really well, and so you can be like, build that wall or guard that door, and as long as the order is clear. It's like, the way I think of it is like when we ever reach the point where we have like robots with relatively simple AI who can obey simple orders. This is them. So they've got this entire class of non-people who do all that stuff. They obviously have no rights whatsoever, because they're robots, effectively, made of bone or stuff. Mostly skeletons.
Yeah, like if you took the movie iRobot with Will Smith and replaced all the robots with skeletons, it would be Hollowfaust.
It would be Hollowfaust, yeah. They do have zombies, but they generally don't they don't see them day to day because it squicks people out. They have ways of preserving zombies so they don't rot, but they will
There's
put,
still
because
something about.
Well, because you don't know if like this zombie was your dead aunt, you know. So they put masks on them to conceal their identity and wrap them in these like heavy cloth robe things, so you can't, it's a zombie, but you don't know who it was, So, and they basically conceal them. So just these weird wrapped figures moving rocks over there or something like that. They're there too, but they're not going to be walking around like delivering groceries. That'll be the skeletons. So it's a creepy place. And some of them, they've got these other specialty undead that they've made that are rarer. For specifically for things like construction projects, there are these undead called the Great Laborers. They're 18 feet tall, 4-armed, glossy black skeletons made of multiple different somethings. Presumably, I presume there's some giant skeleton in there somewhere, because that's the only thing that explains the height. And they charge them with city civic projects like repairing an aqueduct or city walls that that fell from a siege, and they send these, and they don't have very many of them because apparently it's their, well, I'd assume it's because it's hard to get a giant skeleton, but also there's some rumor that the guy who invented them, one of the original 7 pilgrims, passed away, didn't really leave good instructions on how to make more, and they're still trying to figure out how they're made. Maybe it's all a rumor. But suffice to say, there's a very small, finite number of these guys, but they generally use them for the big projects. So you've got that whole class of undead. So kind of cool there. Yeah. Going to that, so how does this work, right? So how does this city work? What are their resources? How do they live in the middle of flipping nowhere with very little around them? Because you've got desert, and you've got wasteland of undead on one side, and you've got evil forest on the other side, and you've got hills with basically nothing living on them on the north, and it's like every side is blasted nothing. They do have trade. They've literally, I think I mentioned this last time, they've literally built roads to go to the Heteronomy of Verdok, and they've got roads that go north toward Derrakeen. So they do have trade, but you can't just, what are they going to trade? They do have some mining operations in the southern Gascar Peaks, but they also are self-sustaining, believe it or not. Not just because they have undead, but they do some farming. And it's kind of neat how they do this. They discovered underwater aquifers, so they do have water resources, where Old City of Samara had built these aqueducts, and they've prepared them to bring in water. And they also have a magic fountain that just makes water via magic. They rely on magic for a lot. But a lot of their citizenry have these awesome little farms throughout the city. Just outside the walls, there's some, I believe it's barley farms, but that's tangential and not to be relied on, because you never know when there's going to be a siege or something else, and it's not that safe. So that's sort of a supplementary dietary thing. Most of the food is grown inside the walls. Not a lot of farmland, so they have these kind of little pockets where they'll have a rooftop garden, or they'll take out the cobblestones between houses and build and plant wheat and stuff, and because the city is Samara was massive, could have held 1 million people. Hollowfaust is relatively tiny. It only has a few 100,000 or something like that. So, and they're occupying about 1/3 of the original city. So even though they're a fairly beefy population, they're not even filling half the buildings in the section of the city that they've claimed for habitation. So they have all these kind of extra buildings, and people are allowed to buy the land. So everybody's a landholder or a descendant of one. And what they've done is they'll be the house they live in, and then the house they farm in. And that's just weird, but they do. They'll take an old house, and they'll turn it into a pig farm. They call them swine houses. Squeal houses. I thought that was just really clever. So the first floor will be where the pigs are. And they do say it smells terrible. They have this section of towns that's where all the farming is. And then the roof will be gardens, and then they'll grow these vines along the sides of the house. And they grow melons, and they have fruit trees, kind of stuff that fits in this sort of arid environment. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know why melons fit. I guess they have a lot of water because of the aquifers, but I'm not a farmer, so I don't know. But I just thought that was cool. Cool, lore building of how do we get our food? We do weird stuff. We do what we can. So, and you just dig up cobblestones, and there's dirt underneath, and do this stuff. They also have lots of crafting. Not a lot of lumber, because there's not a lot of trees in the area, because the trees were pretty much all killed off in the mountains. But they can grow various kinds of plants that they can turn into reeds, like not really reeds, but they make a type of wicker. They make a type of linen. They don't have a lot of leather, because really they only they don't have cattle or anything. They just have pigs, so not a lot of leather from those. But they do use the pig skin to make book covers, and they are famous bookmakers in Hollowfaust, which I think is another really neat thing. And what's fun is the craftsmen are all really into the macabre vibe of the city, because as these walking skeletons, everything's got this like Halloween vibe. So the craftsmen will emboss things with a lot of macabre design, like skulls or whatever suits their fancy to fit that. And it's like we joked before, it's like Nightmare of Christmas Town. It's like Halloween Town. And they'll sell these crafts with just very much the Hollowfaustian flavor. So you could be like in Shelzar or in Mithril, and in a shop, and there'll be cups for sale made in Hollowfaust, and they'll have skulls on them, and you're like, yeah, we know these cups are following. So, and they're as much known for selling books and black onyx jewelry they mine, as much as they are for selling weird like cutlery and cups and stuff, and children's toys with a macabre theme. I love that. I love the idea of a skeleton hobby horse, whatever.
Totally.
It's just neat. So all these crafters doing that stuff. It's just I don't know, like getting kind of funky stuff from New Orleans or something. That it's like that vibe, like made in Hollowfaust stamp on the bottom. So the economy does pretty well, and as I said, they don't really have a lower class. Taxes are mild, and the guildsmen actually make an effort to make sure that there isn't really an upper class either beyond them. They don't let anybody else get too rich. And they themselves live pretty modestly because of what they care about. They're not interested in material wealth. They're interested in wacky spell components. So they put what wealth they have into getting rare things more than living opulently. So none of these guys are going to have a gold toilet. As a result, there's kind of more for everybody else. So that's good. And they're big on that internal growth from the citizenry. So where do we get the new necromancers from? From our population. And it also reduces corruption, because you don't get anybody too powerful because you're constantly bringing in new blood. So it's kind of cool there. And it's all, I think so much of it is because of the handful of leaders who are just incorruptible. Like Barrio in particular, the Lich. Like, you don't think of an incorruptible Lich, but he is the ultimate lawful good. The only equivalent would be like the people in Mithril. He's just so nice and proper and like just the ultimate, and just like this is and he's not so draconian in the law because he's lawful good, so he's also all about being uber fair, which I love about this character. Just the idea that there's this Lich who's like, no, you're being bad. I will make sure that doesn't happen. And he's the head of the secret police, so his whole thing is making sure that everybody's treated fairly. And he's got like a whole police run around that, but it's pretty neat, but pretty weird. So, but I like that, and obviously in fantasy world, how realistic is this? But still. So one of the cool things they talked about, there was a lot of like, I think the writers had fun with this. A lot of where phrases came from. One little cute story I read, where I said they don't really have a servant class. There's some things though that skeletons just aren't smart enough to do, because you don't want to like have a skeleton running around with open flames, for example. Bad idea. So they do have a one of the jobs people do are called firemen, not to put out fires, but to prepare for them. Kind of other people will hire one of these folks to go into their house, and while it's okay to have an undead, clean the dishes, they don't want them necessarily doing more complicated things. So they would hire one of these firemen to go and replace candles and fill the oil lamps and clean chimneys and ashes and lay down the wood for the fireplace. So when they get to light their fire at the end of the day, it's all set up for them. These folks used to light the fires as well, but leaving too many times a fire was left unattended and then caused a bit of a problem was the house burned down. And so they actually have a phrase in town, which is "I'll light a fire for you," which means I'll offer you a bribe or do some kind of ethically questionable task for you. So it's like a bad phrase. So if you're in Hollowfaust and someone's like, "I'll light a fire for you," you're like, "Not on the up and up, probably." Gonna get my house burned down as a result of that. I thought that was a neat little touch of lore. And there's like several of these. It's 2 or 3 of like, this is where that phrase comes from in Hollowfaust. It means something different than it would mean elsewhere. So I thought that was particularly cool. Also, the council, the guilds, have a big thing for public education. All children, when they're young, go to school. They have public schooling, or publicly funded private schools. Doesn't make sense. Where they learn reading and writing and math and basic history and like where we came from and all that. And then once they hit tween, 11, 12, 13 years old, they become journeyman apprentices, or they become apprentices for various whatevers, whether it's a crafter or a cobbler or a clerk or a wizard. They would go off to an apprenticeship as they become teens. And this is pretty much the case for everybody. They really have a, like, the guild's like, nope, everybody will be educated. This is a thing. So to be from Hollowfaust generally means you're higher educated than if you were from elsewhere in Gilspad, unless you were born wealthy. So that's cool. But they don't really have very many scholars, because you don't have, if you're a scholar, you probably like left for Lokiel if that was your game, or that was your jam. It's like, I want to just study forever. Like, you're in the wrong city. It's about 100 miles that way. We'll escort you. But that's where all the scholars live. But pretty much everything else, you'd go off and get to do a thing. I think that's cool. So that's kind of your everyday folks.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get your military. That's not like massive to a level that you'd find in a lot of the other city-states and nations in Gilspad. It's not like the military is the size of it is in Calastia or even Mithril. But it's still beefy enough, because while Hollowfaust, the most part, is peaceful, they keep getting sieged about every 50 years, so they prepare for that. And it's only been 4 sieges in 150 years, so it's not that bad, but
it's
still a concern. And there's always the threat of just Titan spawn and minor threats that come out of the city, and also within the city itself, because 2/3 of the city is basically the ghost district, which they've cordoned off with big walls. But every once in a while, one of them would get out. And as much as they've been like, go home, go to your heaven or afterlife or whatever, or sleep, stop, every once in a while another ghost will show up and cause trouble. So they need guards to defend from these minor and major threats. So moving on to a new topic. First off, we got the Stygian Guard. And again, I think I mentioned this last week, saying like, River Styx, is that what this is based on?
Right.
Which I think in D&D general canon, isn't that like a river that connects like the abyss and hell or something? So
like that. Yeah, there's a lot of crossover with real world mythologies.
Yeah, definitely. So no reason why it couldn't be named after the same thing in Skarn, because I'm sure that like that maps. So maybe it's named after that. I don't know. But Stygian Guard, they're 300 mercenary company, which is really interesting that it's not people who were born necessarily there, but they're considered mercenaries. And they all dress the same. This is the mercenary company, right? Yeah, mercenaries. Yeah, they're all dressed the same. They were black half plate mail, and they generally serve to protect the Underfaust. So there's basically a third of them are always on duty guarding the gate to the Underfaust. So 100 dudes or people will no going and bugging the necromancers. You have to get through us first. or serving as a last resort if should the city be attacked again, so to guard the Underfaust. So 100 of them are always on duty at the gate. 100 of them are always on patrol around the city out in the wilderness, and 100 of them are just chilling. So a lot of people think this is a pretty good gig because you're only a third of the time on patrol. So a third of the time you're on patrol, a third of the time you're sitting in a gatehouse playing cards, and a third of the time you do whatever you want. So, like, a lot of folks think that this is the best mercenary gig ever. Problem is they only take elite, amazing warriors. So getting into it,
you gotta level up first.
Yeah, well, it's a cushy job during peacetime. You gotta level up to get in there. You to get in it is hard because they're really, really picky of who they choose. So you get a lot of mercenaries who are like, I'm going to try to get in the Stygian Guard. They come to Hollowfaust. They like try out. They fail. They're sort of stuck there. So they like try to level up, so to speak. And they'll become like a caravan guard, walking, taking caravans back and forth from the city until finally they kind of get good enough to join the Stygian Guard. So that's kind of a thing. And their leader is super picky. He's like, I'm not just taking anybody. And that's I think that's kind of neat. And plus, because also people who were in the Stygian Guard retire and end up just being citizens in the city. In an absolute vital emergency, they can call up to, while they're only normally 300 strong, they can get to about 1,000 folks based on retirees are still capable of fighting, and these kind of recruits who want in, they could conceivably pull together a good 1,000 fighters if something like there was another siege, for example, where they would conscript people in the time of massive need. So beefy military. That's just one of the militaries. Actually, one of like 3, basically. So the second one is the Unfailing. They're a much smaller group, though. I think there's only, I don't know how many of them are there, maybe 100. They're really small, but they're not a military unit. And you can be Unfailing and in the Stygian Guard, too, which is interesting. The Unfailing in the D&D sense, it's basically a prestige class or a archetype, was fighter archetype. They're elite warriors sworn to protect the necromancers, specifically with their lives. So they're extremely loyal, and they have these abilities to basically fight after they die, because necromancers.
Right.
So if they fall in battle, they get back up again, and they keep fighting for the rest of the battle. So it's pretty terrifyingly badass. and you can play one. It's the SLPG, the Scarlet's Player Guide for 5th edition, has this as a fighter archetype to play an Unfailing. So, but presumably you trained with them in Hollowfaust to get there. So, but still, pretty neat prestige class. And then you finally have your biggest group of military branch, which is the undead. So lots of them, but again, they all need to be ordered by living things, or things with brains. So they're shock troops. They don't really do anything complicated. You send them out on patrol, and they're like, "I saw something weird. That was a squirrel, George." They don't necessarily process very well, but they're about, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and we could talk about the Maronites here because they make a good amount of that. Do you want to do that? Are you still?
Oh my god! Okay, moving to a different computer did not help.
Oh, did you
At least
crash
it was
out?
only. I only crashed for like a few seconds, so that was good.
Welcome back. So yeah, we could
Take
talk about the
Take a drink.
we could talk about
Taking a drink.
the Maronites,
Maronites, yes.
since they are a big part of that.
I'm letting you talk about that because I didn't do the research.
Oh, gotcha. Well, one sec, because my other computer is being slow. There it is. So yeah, they were devised by the Necromancers of Hollowfaust to act as undead servants and soldiers. Obviously, they try to verify whether or not they were centaurs or if they're just cobbled together.
Really hear about centaurs in the Scarred Lands? Not to say
Yeah.
they don't exist, but I think the only ones that really exist are like in the Ganges. So I would think cobbled together based on
I
centaur
think you're
concept.
right. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're cobbled together.
I'm not seeing anything on here that says how they're actually created.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure they're cobbled together because, I mean, not to say that they wouldn't, given the opportunity to have a centaur, a bone skeleton,
Right.
they wouldn't take it and build one out of it because
Right.
hell, yes, they would. But I don't think that's how they make most of the Maronites.
I can just imagine that, going on an adventure with, and you're really anyone from Hollowfaust. They're just like looking at living creatures, and you're like, look at that beautiful thing and its feathers and its colors and everything, and they're just like, I wonder what that would look like dead.
Yeah, what's the skeletal structure on that?
Right.
Because I was going to talk about this later, but one of the things that you can do at Hollowfaust is sell corpses and remains of, and they will pay a hefty penny for remains of weird shit.
Yeah.
Like you bring in a remain of a Sutak, they're like, we have thousands of Sutak. We will not give you anything for a Sutak body. Like, you have 2 copper pieces. But you bring in the remains of a giant or Vengarak or some kind of just really badass Titan spawn, they'll be like, here's some gold, something amazing, here's some platinum. And there's a crazy bounty, and I don't know why, but there's a crazy bounty on the blood of Vangel's Herald. Like, they'll be like, we'll pay you whatever you want.
Right.
If you get a vial of her blood, name the price. Like, I don't know why they want it. It creeps me out.
It's yours.
It just creeps me out that this is like a major thing that they're looking for. It's like, why Vangel's? What did she do?
Right.
It's like, not her body, just a vial of her blood. What spell is this essential to?
And you have to wonder whether or not they've approached her and been like, "Hey, so we just a little bit. Could we just have a little bit, right?" And she's like,
"No."
So interesting. Travis mentioned that there in Glividatel there's a Necklavi jouster, which is essentially a humanoid grafted to an undead horse. So it could very well be that the blueprint for the Marrow Knight is maybe even from the same source. Perhaps this wherever they came from, they were like, that's a great idea. Let's make those too.
Well, it's an obvious thing to do, but I would suspect that the Marrow Knight probably came first over the thing in Glividatel, because most of the guys in Glividatel based their stuff on stuff they did in Hollowfaust. So
that makes sense.
And they're constantly spying on Hollowfaust. So whenever Hollowfaust gets a new idea, they're like, we must try that too. Let's hope they never get the plans for the bone rack dragon, because that would be bad.
So yeah, the Marrow Knights as servants, as soldiers for these units, they're interesting because they create them and they leave them with this like measure of intelligence so that they can really like follow orders and do it creatively, and they have sentience, but it's like super limited, and they have 0 willpower of their own. They are created to follow the necromancers of Hollowfaust, no one else, and they have no ambition of their own. So it's like they are the perfect soldier.
Basically kind of a cross between an undead and a construct.
Yeah.
I mean, they're undead. They don't have any construct classes, but they're smarter than your average zombie. Like, a bit. I mean, Still an int of 5. Don't get me wrong. They're not. But they're smarter than most animal companions. So you can, and but they can't talk, but they can understand you. And
right.
So yeah, but they're not really what you hire for, like, deliver my groceries or whatever.
Right. Although, I mean, the necromancers can. They can be like, I want you to do whatever I want you to do, and they'll do it. But
yeah, but they can't fit through the doorway because they're. That's my point. You generally don't hire them for that kind of a task because they're big. So it's generally like guard duty or patrol and stuff.
And they tend to patrol in like groups, and they have like these group tactics. So
yeah,
they're just really. I think they're cool.
They're definitely cool. So one of the many undead here. So it's like any funky undead probably originated in Hollowfaust or the neighboring region or live it on top.
Or at least they have like sought out the reason for that being's creation so they could duplicate it and have them in the city.
yeah. like there's the ear to the ground because and I think a lot of that is just because A, this is a giant concentration of necromancers who are big into building things, and B, the power they get for necromancer stuff because of all of the dark onyx and necromantic energy and everything in the region makes like charges up necromantic spells, making it easier to create those things. So the combination of that, even if they didn't invent it, they're probably gonna, assuming it's not straight up evil because they don't do that no more.
Right.
They'll try to adapt it. But one specific major rule though, no souls, no undead can, with a few exceptions, you can't be made an undead against your will. Well, I mean, you can, but okay, it's complicated. I'll get into the law in a bit, but they can't have undead with souls, so no vampires unless you yourself intentionally made yourself a vampire. No liches, no all the undead are soulless, just bodies. And it's mostly because Namorga's like, no, spirits must go on because he's god of death. He's like, I don't care what you do with the body. It's the thing. Spirits got to go where they go, and some of them stick around because they're ghosts and they are trapped for or want to be or whatever. But you're not allowed to do that. That's really against Namorga's thing. He's like, nope.
And Travis brings up a good point that is a restraint that Hochhalter does not follow.
Does not have, no.
Obviously, a big difference between the two necromantic societies.
Yes. All the vampires and all of that undead type of conscious soul undead, they're going to be in Hochhalter, not in Hollowfaust. So that's really the exception. So Barrios, who's the lich I was talking about, he's unusual in that regard, as he was made a lich against his will, but before they made that rule. And there are a handful of other liches in the city, but they're all like, I became one of my own choice. But it's really kind of frowned on because it's like, there's better ways to become immortal. I was like, why? And even Barrios is like, I miss having skin and eating.
But it is like a little different because he has free will. He wasn't altered in order to be dominated like you would a necromancer. Like necromancers are like, I create you so you could be my servant, and he was altered for long life. Right.
Yeah. So there's that difference there. Yeah, because he was, and we talked about that last episode, where he was made by basically the guys who kicked him out, or they kicked out for being horrible, who founded Hochhalter.
Right.
So I love his character. I've said that before. Okay, let me talk about the laws then, because it's kind of my next topic, and that's like the big thing around this. And this book had like a whole ginormous chapter just on the laws.
It is probably the most in-depth law section I've seen for any city.
Any
setting
book,
right?
In any D&D book. I mean, there might be one out there. Please tell us if there is. But certainly in terms of Scarred Lands, it is. I mean, you think Hadrad is Well, Hadrad doesn't have its own book, so it doesn't have, if Hadrad had its own book, it probably would have a
That'd
bigger
be fair.
section.
Yeah.
but they just crib from this one. So it's because the laws there are complicated, because the laws were basically invented by 7 necromancers, and or necromancer adjacent, and so there's a lot of lawyers. They call them magistrates, bailiffs. Not really lawyers per se. They're more kind of a combination. They're more judges, really. So there are lawyers, but that you can hire a lawyer who knows the law and can interpret for you and stand for you in court. But they've got these magistrates, 2 different courts, the low court and the high court. The low court is for basically petty crimes, theft of under 100 gold pieces, or anything of that equivalent. And there's a big freaking table in the book that covers all of this stuff. And so anything comes to them, they'll do it. And it's crazy the restrictions they have, because they have every week at the end of the week or the beginning of the week, they would have this list of all the things that they're going to try to cover in court this week. And they're sort of handed out to all the magistrates. It's like, this is your case, this is your case, this is your case. And they have to try the case by the end of the week. So unless the case came up the end of the previous week, basically everything turns over in the low court within a 2-week time frame, because when it comes in and then it gets on the docket and when they cover it, and they only have a week to cover it, and they get here's the 6 cases I have to do in 8 days, and they get 1 day off a month, so unless it's a holiday or whatever. So they're book crazy, and I'd hate to be a bailiff. I'd hate to be one of these guys. It just sounds like a horrible job. And they get in trouble if they don't get through their caseload each week. So they're under serious pressure to get through all of the cases they have to do. And the shit cases go to all the junior guys too. So it's good luck there. The higher level magistrates get to pick which ones I want the good one, and then leaving all the crappy ones to the journeyman magistrates. So and there's a lot of competition between them of who's gonna try to get through my case. So it's this I swear somebody who was a legal aide or something wrote this book. I don't know. Wow. Or in some kind of corporate thing. So I thought that was fun. Then you've got a law enforcement officials, so basically police. But you have 2 kinds of police. You have the city guard, who's your sort of beat cop, and they can be living or dead. And you've got your secret police, of which there are 3 branches of secret police. And these 2 organizations also compete with each other. Again, healthy competition, so no one gets too powerful. So the city guard, and this is the other military organization did I talk about the Black Shields? I talked about the Black Shields. Yeah, they're not military per se. They're cops. Basically, they do internal street patrols, checking for crime and theft and whatever. And there's 500 of them, so it's pretty big. But they also help guard the walls. And they guard the outer walls. So I said the Stygian guard guards the Underfaust walls. The city guard guards the outer wall of the. So basically, the Stygian guard do the necromancers and outside the city. Inside the civilian area of the city, the civil area of the city is the Black Shields. So, and they've got about 500 formally trained, and then another 250 schmoes who just I get paid how much to stand guard duty on the wall? Am I allowed to smoke weed while I'm doing it? No. So they'll have just guys, just regular citizens, here's a shield and a spear. Get up there, tell us if you see anything. Who just do guard duty for it's a living. But they mix them in with undead. So they'll have these cops on patrol, and you'll have 3 people, and you'll have 5 zombies on a cop patrol wandering through the city. Because the zombies aren't smart enough to recognize, to really, they'll be like, you weren't supposed to pick that up. It's like, it's mine, I own it. You're breaking into that house. It's my house. This is my key. They won't know. So they need the people there to know they're not committing a crime. And well, one of the things I loved about the criminal thing is, if it's a victimless crime, it's not a crime. They will not enforce anything where property or people were not harmed. So they didn't give an example.
I was going to say, so what would be an example of that? I'm curious.
I don't know. I mean, my thought is some of the weird shit in Hollowfaust, like the fact that it's a crime for smiling. It would not be a crime in Hollowfaust because it's victimless. I'm like, who's hurt? Big deal. You smiled. I don't care. So I think that's what they mean. It's like theft, there's a victim. Murder, obviously, there's a victim. Assault, there's a victim. The disturbing the peace, arguably a victim, depending on how you disturb the peace.
Yeah.
Was anyone actually disturbed? Did anyone complain? Yeah. If no one complained, we're not going to enforce it.
Well, yeah, so that's what I was thinking, because I'm just like, what possibly? So, like, public urination?
Maybe consider victims a crime, they don't care.
If no one was offended, good for you. If someone was
offended, the zombie will clean it up. We're good. We don't care.
The zombie will clean it up.
Yeah, because it's not like anyone. You just tell the zombie to do it, or the skeleton to do it, and you don't have to. They don't care. They're not having to clean it up. Skeleton's smart enough to clean up pee.
I do have to wonder whether or not they consider. Because you're delving into our undead property. Yes. So if you run up and smash someone's skeleton, that is a crime.
That would be a crime. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are all undead are property, and they're all owned by the guilds. Like, because ultimately, because the guilds can be the only ones who can control them. So common citizenry who wouldn't necessarily have a skeleton servant. Although they might hire a guild to have a skeleton servant come in and do their but again, skeleton servants aren't that smart. You would never have a skeleton nanny. You wouldn't have they can carry a thing. They can do a really paint the fence level task, but you're not going to have them do anything complicated. They're not going to do your accounting for you. It just no. They're good, very limited labor. They're robots. They're basically robots. So, should Hollowfaust ever create a factory, they're good for that. Right. But yeah. So yeah. And the center for the police force is the first gate, which is the gate into the city, and they basically have a guardhouse there. So if something should happen, like they're walking through the city, the little patrol, and they see somebody get assaulted. They'd be like, zombies, stop the assault. Bob, go to the first gate and get back up. and one of the people would go get back up while the two remaining guys and their little group of undead would deal with the problem as well as they can. But, say a Vengarak popped out of the ground, because that's a thing that happens. Yeah. It's an unfortunate thing that happens, because... Yeah. So, the little second level guardsmen probably aren't effective to deal with it, so they'd send their zombies in to slow them down and send Bob off to get reinforcements, and then summon a couple of necromancers to come and take out the Vengarak. Right. That would totally happen. like not every day, not every month, but that is a thing that could totally happen to one of these little patrolling guardsmen. Or a ghost wanders out of the ghost district and starts creating havoc in someone's household, or this is a thing that would happen. So even if most of the populace are relatively peaceful, weird shit happens because you're in Hollowfaust. So they're always on the lookout for that kind of stuff. Nice. So that's the public police. Then you have the secret police. We're called the Shadows, led by Barrios or Barrio. There's no S in that. Barrio. They're completely loyal to him because honestly he's the bomb. And there's 3 divisions for this group. There's internal affairs. This sounds like actual divisions of a real police force, but they're weird. Internal affairs are polices the bureaucracy, magistrates, the black shields. So they basically make sure that the cops aren't corrupt. They make sure that the magistrates aren't corrupt, that the judges are all being fair, and they cover that. There's the state affairs, which they are the ones you call when that ghost shows up, or something magical, any magical threat, any undead makes a stink. They're the ones you call. They also seek out sedition, like are there citizenry who are like, I don't like the necromancers, screw them. Complaining is fine. They're not gonna punish you for that. But if anyone actually plans something, they're like, no, not good. My map wobbled there. Scooch in the chair. Okay. So there's that. And then finally, the third branch is the foreign affairs, and they just basically are constantly spying out adventurers. I kid not. It really is a thing. But they're also external. They have foreign affairs external to the city. Basically ambassadors throughout Gelspad, who are there on behalf of Gelspad, but also interested in interests of Gelspad and how they are treated throughout the rest of how Hollowfaust is considered throughout the rest of the continent. So there will be one of these ambassadors, i.e. spy, in say Shelzar or Fangsfall or Calastia or Mithril or any of these locations. So if somebody's like, oh, we have this issue with a citizen of Hollowfaust is visiting our city, and they'll come and be like, in the interests of Hollowfaust. But they'll also have their ear to the ground of like, is there undead somewhere else? Is there, what's happening in terms of things we're interested in? And they're the ones who like, somebody made a new undead. We should bring the blueprints back to Hollowfaust so they can check it out. And or other things that just those spell ingredients that the necromancers want for their weird experiments and whatnot.
Right.
Because they're constantly doing stuff. So there's those guys. And Barrio's in charge of all of them. Although I don't know how he tracks all of those ambassadors around the continent. I talked about the low court. There's also the high court. So they cover their judges come from the necromancy guilds. So magisters are civilians, the low court, high court, guild members, and they're kind of you so have to serve if you're to be a guild member. This is one of the things you have to do. Although a lot of people, it's like, this case has to do with me, so you can't. Obviously they're really, really particular about conflicts of interest. Quid pro quo is a big deal, and don't let that happen in Hollowfaust. So high court is anything over 100 gold pieces, or the punishment is over 10 lashes. I didn't talk about punishments. Punishments, there's no jail in Hollowfaust, which I think there's temporary, there's no prisons, I should say. There's temporary jail, like this guy did a bad thing, stick him in jail for until we can get him in front of the court. But nobody stays in jail for more than 2 weeks. It's like if you did something right before the next docket comes up, and then you're on the following week's docket. So you're not going to be in jail for longer than 2 weeks. And hopefully. Well, if you did a low crime. If you did a high crime, the magistrates can take all the time they want. They generally go about it quickly because they want to go back to doing weird necrotic experiments. So, but they don't have a restriction on we have to get it done within the week. So yeah, you could sit for a while. And there's a big table on what the various punishments are. But the punishments are pretty straightforward. It's like you get whipped up to 20 lashings, no more, because we don't want to kill you. You get fined. You serve some kind of public service if you can't pay your fine. Or you're exiled, or you go to final forfeiture. That's what makes Hollowfaust unique.
Right. It sounds so...
So if you're...
It sounds so legal.
So if you're a guildsman... Yeah. And yet, if you're a guildsman, you just get executed. No final forfeiture for you. You're exempt. If you're not a guildsman, if you're a citizen, if you're a visitor, even if you're a magistrate, a retainer, any other group, anything other than a guildsman, you go to final forfeiture. If you did a major crime, it's fucked up. Because I said, like, so things that are illegal, torture is illegal. Consent. You can't do anything against someone's consent unless they are subjected to final forfeiture. Then it's all fair game. And that's when things get fucked up and creepy. Because it's basically a death sentence. It's effectively a death sentence. But they don't just cut your head off. You know, magisters, yeah. Not magisters. Guild members, necromancers, yes. But everyone else, your body is handed to a necromancer, and there's like a waiting list. Not kidding. Handed to a necromancer to do whatever the fuck he wants. And the nice ones, the nice necromancers, will take you to into the volcano, stick you in a room full of toxic fumes, and you basically breathe in toxic gases and pass away and go to sleep, and then he does horrible things with the corpse. Not nice necromancers.
It doesn't have to be horrible things. It's just depending on
how
you
does
look
whatever
at
he wants
it.
to with the corpse. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, turns you into a soldier, his next skeleton or whatever. The other not so nice necromancers, it's squicky, to say the least.
Yeah.
or and beyond. There is, I don't want to like stick trigger warnings on this episode, but
I'm
but
pretty
yeah,
sure. So right now I've got there were like multiple tall images in the book that grabbed and made into triptychs and everything, and one of the images that is up right now is essentially this guy being tortured by a couple of necromancers, and it looks like they're experimenting on him. He's got like stitches and stuff, so obviously they're not hurrying his death along. They're like trying to find out, what does this living body do while it's in final forfeiture. Right.
Yeah, and they're because and it a lot of it depends which branch did you get handed to.
Yeah.
Because because they don't think of you as a person anymore. They're not allowed to do anything with your soul. But they don't have to let it go. They can keep doing whatever they want, even if it's torture, which is pretty horrible. But they're not allowed to include the soul in any final creations that they make. But that's the only restriction.
Your wife cracks me up. Rate your pain. This is for science, so please be honest.
Yes, exactly. It is exactly implied to be that way. So it's super mega creepy, and like some of these necromancers are good. Theoretically, none of them are evil. I have a feeling there's still a few that are evil, but there's a lot of them that are neutral who don't care.
Yeah.
This is for science. It's like me.
Science.
So they're not being horrible for the sake of being horrible. They're being horrible for the sake of science.
Knowledge, right?
Doesn't help in my book, but there you go. So yeah, and presumably if you were under final forfeiture, you did something horrible to get there. So blah. There is an appeals process. It's not a very good one. The low court, if you appeal from the low court, you go to the high court. If you appeal at the high court, the council can decide if they want to look at your case. It's not much of an appeal at the high court, because it's those 7 guys in the council who are like, they'll get an appeal and they'll be like, do we care? No, whatever. Or they might see the appeal and listen to you. Maybe it's up to them to decide if they take it, and that's it. There's nothing higher. I mean, other than praying to the gods and hoping for divine intervention that's going to see. So that's fun. So that's kind of the law.
Yeah.
But so that's where they get. Admittedly, they also get a lot of their parts from trade, because like I said, you can go to Hollowfaust and be like, we got these bones, we'll buy them. They'll buy any bones. They might get much money for them, but
yeah, I mean, if you're just like out offing goblins, you're probably not going to get a whole bunch for it. there might be a bulk, rate that you can get, but it's overall. But if you're out, if you happen to, this was brought up earlier in chat, if you happen to like go out and kill the Stormwrack dragon, you'd probably be pretty well off for a while.
They would pay a lot for a Stormwrack dragon's body. I'd say that. And
Travis might have mentioned that there may or may not be a Stormwrack dragon on the cover of Dead Man's Rest. Go check it out right now.
Totally off topic, but in The Serpent and Fora, there is a canon Stormwrack dragon living in the Hornsaw Forest. So, or is associated with the Hornsaw Forest anyway, associated with the hags of Dar al-Anat. So, in the Serpent Forest cycle. So, yes, there's definitely at least one Stormwrack/Woodwrack dragon living in the Hornsaw. Whether it's the same dragon, I don't know. I'm not aware of that in Rust, but where there's one, there could be more.
Travis says, yeah, it's not so much living anymore. Well, interesting. Spoilers.
Get their hands on a Stormwrack dragon. Okay, that's but the Bonewrack dragon in Hollowfaust is unique. So if Glividotel has their own Bonewrack dragon, it's their own.
Yeah, they have stolen some magic ideas. Or at least recycled magic ideas.
Yeah, whether they stole the plans from Hollowfaust or they came up with their own plans in an obvious let's make undead of a dragon way. Draco Liches are just the bomb anyway. It's like fun having them. So I've always been a fan of, well, okay, I've been terrified by the idea of Draco Liches, but they're a thing, right? Okay, where is the rest of my notes? Oh, I was looking at it. Okay. So I did cover the 7 pilgrims last time, right? I can't remember.
We did, yep.
Did I cover the 7 guilds?
That I don't think so. Nope.
Okay. So let me talk about the Underfaust and the Necromancers for a bit. So each of the pilgrims founded a guild, and one of the guild was disbanded when they kicked him out, and another guild was cut in half. And over the years, most of the original pilgrims passed away.
Yeah.
And there's in fact only one still alive, which means he's really old. But I'll just go down.
And by alive, you don't mean undead.
No, I mean alive, as far as we know. But
because the Lich is still alive, correct?
Yes, yeah, but the Lich is an original pilgrim. So I meant of the original 7.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So first there's the Anatomists Guild. It was founded by Carthia, who we talked about before. It was the physician, so necromancer, but also more into like surgery and not healing magic, but more just healing with physical stuff. So she founded a guild. After she passed away, it was handed over to. She retired actually before she passed away. It was handed to who eventually inherited it is a guildman named Asaru. I don't know if you've got his picture up. Oh, there's pictures of every single one of these guildmen. Is he the fluffy one? I think he's the fluffy one. He's kind of a jerk, which is interesting because she was the sweetest person ever. He's sort of jealous. I think he's just got like low self-esteem. Honestly, when you read his description, it's like, you have issues, buddy. He sort of hangs out more with the weird folks than with the cool folks. So it's described. But today they do use magic to enhance healing. So I'm sure I think that just implies that maybe there's some clerics or other types of magical healers involved in the guild that there didn't used to be when she ran it. But they do. I mean, I wouldn't want final forfeiture in this guild. Let me put it that way, because I think they do some nasty stuff too.
They're on the squicky.
Learn more about medicine. Yeah. So that's the Anatomist Guild. Okay. Next one is the Animators Guild. They're probably I think they're the biggest or the second biggest guild. They're certainly the most well known because they make the undead. They're like the ones that we make the skeletons, we make the zombies. It was founded by Baristrato, who was one of the kind of not so nice necromancers in the original 7. And today is led by Guildmaster Stenar, who's really, really, really old. So she might have been around during the original. Well, probably not around during the original Pilgrims, but she's still really old. Doesn't craft anymore. She still leads the guild, but she's not involved in the day-to-day because she's got apparently like arthritis or something. But and I didn't think it talked about this. She's got this funky, cool chair, this skeleton chair that carries her about, like a wheelchair chair, and it walks around like a big spider. And like it's got spider arms that she uses to, open doors or whatever for her. Super creepy. But it has to be. It's Hollowfaust. You need someone with a giant skeleton chair in this city. It just fits. Then we have the Chorus of the Banshee. That's the new guild. I'm doing these alphabetically, apparently. That's the newest guild. They basically replaced the Society of Immortals when they were kicked out about 50 years later or so. I said it in the last episode how long it was. Founded by Ylimir. Today it is led by Ulfmar Widowson, who looks the necromanciest necromancer with the hat and the coat and everything. I think, assuming I should actually have the page open to make sure I'm quoting the right stuff. Yeah, he's got the hat and they've got this outfit that the necromancers wear. They have these wide-brimmed hats, not like cowboy hats, but a little bit like cowboy hats, and they wear like black coats, and that have like chill weave. I didn't mention chill weave, did I?
Oh, no.
Yeah, sorry about that. One of the exports, things they discovered in Hollowfaust, because it's really hot there, because you're right on the edge of the Recruiting Desert. They make this material called chillweave, which is basically applying endure elements kind of a spell, so that if you wear one of these coats, you don't suffer the effects of extreme heat. It doesn't necessarily protect you from fire, but it does protect you from 100 plus degrees Fahrenheit weather you're going to encounter in this region. Thank you, living on the edge of the desert. So they make these coats, and you can buy them, and if you find chillweave elsewhere in Gelspad, it's almost certainly made from Hollowfaust. So yet another cool thing they do. So they've got these chillweave coats and these funky hats. So that's of course the Banshee. Anyway, sorry about that aside. They study ghosts. A lot of them are bards, and the Mourner Bard College, I think it's a Bard College, comes from them. That's part of 5th edition. And they kind of, the people who are interested in sort of the necromantic arts, but who aren't a wizard, fall well in this guild. Like bards and sorcerers and whatnot. They're the second largest guild after the Animator Society, and they're just kind of interesting. And they're like, what is it they do? Yeah, they were all about like dirges and not entertainment so much. There's actually another guild for that, but they're kind of just where everyone else lands is this guild. So they're the jack of all trades guild.
Yeah.
But it's just whatever you want to do if you're studying necromantic arts, you sort of end up in here if you don't fall anywhere else. Then there's the Disciples of the Abyss. This is the guild led now by Barrio, the one that was splintered when half of them wandered off to Glividotel. They're the ones who study necrotic energy. So any kind of those spells that that do necrotic damage in 5th edition, or negative energy in 3.5. And one of the things that they do is they make sure that vampires and liches and wizards and magicians who show up obey the rules. They're like, no messy with necrotic energy because you're all empowered. So we're not going to let you screw with that while you're in our city. Because vampires still show up because there's so much energy there that they can draw from, and it's bad. And other kinds of similar undead who draw from necrotic energy. So, Disciples of the Abyss both study it, use it, and he's particularly proficient at it because he's immune to drain. So any shadow or anything's going to try to, it's like, yeah, whatever, you can't hurt me. So, convenient there. All right. Next, Followers of Nemorga. This was founded by the cleric Sapphirel the Weary. I loved his name. And they consider Hollowfaust a holy place. They're the ones who basically deal with the undead section of the city and make sure, like, the ghosts go to sleep. It's theoretically today run by Guildmaster Yael, Yaeol. Who's another one of those, like, necromancer-looking necromancers. But really, it's still being run by Sapphirel the Weary. Despite the fact that he died. Because his ghost stuck around. And
he had unfinished business to do.
And he's like, yeah, I know I'm a follower of Nemorga. Please, Nemorga, let me stay. I'm not done yet. And, apparently Nemorga was groovy with that. It's like, okay, but you can't possess anyone. I don't know. I don't know what his restrictions were. Because Nemorga's god of death. He's like, no, go.
Yeah.
But
is it well known that he's still around, or is it kind of a secret?
I think it's known amongst the guilds, but not necessarily well known outside of the Underfaust.
Which might have been part of his, you can do this, but you don't get to go, like, traveling around and go down to the coffee shop. You can't order
exactly.
out,
Exactly. So and that's why in his picture they've got this sort of spirit behind him, and that's Sapphirel whispering to his ear, and I was like, no, don't let them do that. Do this thing. So he's particular. He didn't want to leave. So that's fun. And then we have the Readers of Cracked Bones. This was founded by Grand Mistress Peridates.
I think Peridates, because it's kind of Greekish, Romanish.
Yeah. When she passed away, it was taken over by Guildmistress Numadia, who's one of the youngest, probably the youngest Guildmistress. But the skill is known for speaking to the dead, I should say, not the undead. Undead don't really have much to say. Speaking to the dead, and she actually does contact the old guildmistress from beyond. While her soul doesn't muck about like the other guy does, she will talk to her from wherever her soul does reside and give her advice. And this is known. Be like, well, let me go ask her. I'll just ring her up. Whatever afterlife she happens to be in. And like, I don't even know which one Hadrada's maybe. Like, if you're done doing your sums, can you help me out with this problem? And so she'll contact her and ask her advice. So in that regard, two of the original Pilgrim founders are still hanging out, even though they're not physically there necessarily. Right. So that's kind of fun. And as I said, they do divination and talk to the dead. And then finally we have the Sowers of Fear.
Sounds
who are
just so pleasant.
They're the Goths. They're the Mega Goths. They're led by Guildmaster Malhadra Demos, who's the only pilgrim of the original 7 left alive, technically. And he looks like he's 40. So blows my mind there. He founded this 135 years ago, the guild.
Yeah.
And he started in Hollowfaust nearly 150 years ago. And you figure he wasn't 20 when he founded it. So this guy's pushing 200.
Yeah. And just to clarify, he's human, right?
He's not an elf. You think,
Right.
okay, he must be an elf, right? Okay, that makes sense. No, he's human. I mean, if he's a half elf, he's hiding it well. He appears, for all intents and purposes, human. His stat block claims human. So that's interesting.
He's just got really good genes.
I think he's got some kind of potion or something that keeps him youthful.
Those are out there.
Yeah, or maybe he's listed as levels in Rogue and Necromancer, so it's not like he went monk route and got the weird monk thing. So I don't know how he does it, and he's funky. You know, I said everybody's like, you know, you get the fluffy guy and you get that people with the hats but he looks different. He's unique, and he's still got the coat, but instead of the hat, he's actually got this like goatee, like, you know, so you're thinking bad guy, right? And his head's mostly shaved, except he's got this funky top knot that runs down his back. It's like braid. It's from the back of his head that's got bells in it. It's like we braided into it, which I think is just really cool. Yeah. He's just an interesting guy. And the Sowers of Fear, so I said they're the goths. They run the theater troops. They're the entertainers. So despite the bards ending up in the chorus of the Banshee, I suspect there's some bards in the Sowers of Fear too. But they do something different. They are basically Demos's fun thing to do. Like, that's the other way I can think of it is Demos is like the Necromancer's version of Shakespeare. Weird way of describing it, but it's the best I can come up with. He's just interesting and unique, and they have literally 3 theaters in the Hollowfaust, and they're not that big of a city. 3 theaters that all do these kind of funky shows, and they were also involved in the various festivals that happen throughout the year. So when you think about Hollowfaust being Halloween Town, the Sowers of Fear are what make it Halloween, because for them Halloween is every day. And
There's
I think
a
this
song
is
about that.
yeah, really. They are showmen, they're crafters, they're illusionists, and necromancers. They have 3 theaters. One is called the Festival of Shadows, which is just performance art, magic storytelling, weird stuff that is about unseen fear, the monster under the bed, the shadow in the corner. And it's kind of their performances are based around those concepts. The second theater is called the Carnival of Bones, known for puppet shows and haunted houses. Tell me they don't have skeleton puppets enacting out plays.
Right?
They have to. Like puppets without strings because they're animated corpses, skeletons doing things. It's like Punch and Judy, but with skeleton, little whatever things they have constructed. Lots of bones and strange things around that. And they do haunted houses, so like they'll take one of these old Sumaran houses and restructure it around some creepy walkthrough exhibit. Halloween Town all year round. And then the third one is the House of Blood, because you need a House of Blood.
I mean, why not?
And this is the roughest theater, they said. And this gets through the primordial.
Oh, I'm so glad that we're not doing the drinking game, because I just don't think I can handle it today.
See me?
Welcome back.
I crashed again. I'm back.
Yeah, so that would be 2 drinks.
That was quick. 2 drinks.
The viewers and I really need to figure out this drinking game of every time you crash, because I might die of alcohol poisoning. I can't drink like I used to, so.
It shouldn't be more than 3, unless it's like a 4-hour D&D game. And
if it's just a shot, that's okay. But if I have to chug a whole beer, not gonna happen.
No, please no. But I'm, I'm down on my water bottle.
Hydrating.
At the beginning. So anyway, where was it? Carnival of Blood, or House of Blood? Sorry, House of Blood. This one's about physical fear, terrifying tales of supernatural vengeance. And it's both violence and irony. I imagine the irony has something to do with the storylines. I think this is the one where they like would literally summon something, but like have enough control of it that nobody in the audience actually gets possessed. And when you think about it, so you think about real Halloween, it's scary, but nothing's actually going to hurt you. Hopefully, assuming all the props are functioning properly. This is Necromancers Halloween,
right?
Do they have to sign a waiver?
There's probably at very least like some kind of fine print on the handout that when you come in, there's just like, hey, if you're under this age, you should watch this. If you have any lingering effects, if you're pregnant, right? if you're prone to seizures. Or,
don't go to these shows. Maybe you're okay in just the Carnival of Bones because it's just puppets, but right. Don't go to the House of Blood if you have any health conditions. Just a bad idea.
And especially because if you die in there, they'll probably put you in the next show.
Because this is an important piece, and I failed to mention this for traveling adventurers.
Yeah.
If you die in Hollowfaust, even if you have a high-level cleric in your party, it is illegal to get resurrected.
Yoink.
They own you. Do not die in Hollowfaust. They own you. Anyone who dies within the city walls, the guild owns your body. So, yeah.
Which just lends itself to so many
cool
adventure ideas.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
Not just like your character's dying and then you trying to get the body out so you can res it, but like other people dying and they're trying to get somebody to get a body out, and you know what I mean? So we talked about this last session, but it is such a rich setting for adventuring. It's just it's probably one of my favorites.
Oh, definitely. I've only had my party go there a few times, and we need to do more in Hollowfaust. But yeah, so there's that thing. So Revivify, you did it in seconds. Police didn't get there fast enough. You're okay. But anything more takes longer than a couple rounds, they own you. They basically, once the spirit has left the body, they own it. So don't die in Hollowfaust.
Yeah, so once you go to 0 hit points, it's not yet.
Not yet.
But once you hit those failures and you're dead.
And you're past Revivify, nobody has that spell. You better have that raised dead with you available and doing it in the round they drop.
Yeah, so. And if somebody sees you, then you're like trying because now you're stealing.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're stealing, and at that point you're like, well, how much is the body worth? Well, that's over 100 gold. So suddenly you're like accused of a crime, stealing from the Necromancer Guild. If you bring someone back to life before, if it's beyond, once
now, if you gentle repose their body, that's probably okay, because they're going to be like, thank you for preserving this. I really had a lot of study I wanted to do on it, so
exactly.
They might pay you extra for doing that. But
exactly. But other than that, not so much. So yeah, totally creeped out. Underfound. I didn't really talk about the other districts of the 3 districts in the city. There's I don't want to get into the giant pile of lore here, but there's tons and tons in the Hollowfaust book that goes into details about all of these various locations in the city. There's a shrine to every god, or every victor god, I should say, and a shrine to Numorga. No surprise there.
Just Numorga, not all of Numorga's aspects, right?
Yeah, just Numorga as the concept. There's no separate shrine to a tussle or to any of those. And there's a bunch of inns and all the theaters and all that within the kind of the citizens' quarter. I was like, what's it actually called? I want to make sure I get that name right. So anyway, there's tons of places you can, and there's civilian quarter, okay. Inns and baths and armory and places where the guards are and all of that business is all of there. Various landmarks, funky places. Then you've got the Ghost District, Ghost Quarter. Not a lot of locations there because it wasn't built up back again. Your people aren't technically allowed in there because, it's full of undead and they, keep it down as much as they can. But, great place for adventuring though. We're gonna go kill some undead we're allowed to beat up. Go in the Ghost Quarter. But there's a couple of interesting things. There's this thing called the Fire Fount. Used to be a fountain, and that shot fresh water. There was a couple of these, and there is still an enchanted fountain like that within the civilian quarter. This one, I believe, just has fire that comes out of it instead of water, and it may be connected to like someplace demonic. So, yuck. So there's that kind of creepy place. Great place to meet illicitly.
Right. I mean, it's hard to miss. So.
Yeah. We're gonna sneak into the Ghost Quarter and meet by the Fire Fountain. Okay.
Right. No one will see us.
And then there's this other place called the Arena of Sacrifice, which most people don't know about. So this is like GM only knowledge. It was buried when the lava came in. It's actually underneath, buried. There was a stadium, and for stadium stuff, and it was buried under a coliseum, I should say, under it, and a priest of Vangel. Because of course, or a follower of Vangel has basically set foot there and is like, mine, and is up to all sorts of nefarious deals there. So there's a whole, you can play with that as much as you want. His name is Zankaras. He's a Vangel follower, not a cleric. I think he's a evil paladin. Like, I used to call them blackguards, but I don't know what the hell I think they're just paladins now, but they're evil. I don't even know anymore where they are in 5th edition. But anyway, he's kind of a horrible person, and tends to gather people, including adventurers, and make them fight to the death in the arena for Vangel's glory. That's fun. And if Barrios ever finds out about this, he will be very upset. So there's a whole little, and I did run that adventure, and we don't talk about it because it went. One of the adventures I have run that went very south. So, yeah, so there's a little potential adventure there dealing with that business. And then the Underfaust, it's basically kind of what you expect of a underground labyrinthian wizard's fort. There's like a library and meeting rooms and residential areas, and creepy places where you can do experiments, and of course the cold storage where you put all your corpses.
Right. Because you don't want that stuff going bad. Your city's gonna smell terrible.
Yeah, but it was interesting. They've got that cold storage, which I presumed that, like, they've got magic to keep that cold, but probably some brown ooze or something, brown mold or something.
Right. Just line the walls with it. Everything's fine.
Because there's also these old lava tubes that go into the dormant volcano, because it's dormant. It's not extinct. There's actually a magma down there somewhere. So I guess it's not even dormant. But it's not like Mount St. Helens level of dormant. So it's not erupting, but it's not.
Right.
I live near Mount St. Helens, so it's we talk about it. Not like near, but same state. Anyway, so there's these lava tubes, and nice sulfuric, nasty fumes come out of them. So it's a no-go area unless you're, need to dispose of someone easily, quickly, and painlessly. But there is apparently a creepy dwarf who lives down there. So, go him. Who's like this aged Charduni dwarf who hangs out, and he's kind of been there nearly 100 years, so that's creepy. And then and then you've got various necromancer colleges and all of that. So only guilds and their retainers are allowed into the actual Underfaust. Although I imagine if a siege, and it hasn't happened, but I imagine if the siege was really bad, they might be willing to bring in the citizenry of the city as a final line of defense. But it has never gotten that bad. It came really close in the fourth siege. It did break the walls, but they managed to fight them off in the streets before they had to retreat to the Underfaust. But that is theoretically a line of last defense. The necromancers really don't want the common citizenry down there. I think they just don't want them to know what they actually do down there.
Right. It's one thing to have skeletons walking around your city taking care of stuff, and it's another thing seeing it done. Like seeing it
exactly.
made,
Exactly. You don't want to know how the sausage is made. You really don't want to know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because
bliss, ignorance is bliss.
Because being a common citizen, it's pretty nice life you get. There's no rampant poverty. There's food. There's shelter. There's and every citizen gets this little token. This little copper piece that they have to carry among them at all times, so that the undead know, not a threat. Don't harm them. So visitors visiting the city, there's curfew, basically, and you can only, if you don't have a token, you can only be out and about certain hours of the day. And if you're found out and about without a token, you get arrested. If you resist arrest, they will attack you. And so you want one of these tokens if you're going to be in the city long term, but they're technically only for citizens. So plot there. How do I get my hands on one of them? Because I'm a criminal element. I want to do this heist in Hollowfaust.
Yeah.
You need to walk around at night. You got to get one of them curfew tokens. That's task number 1 if you're doing Ocean's 11.
Right.
Hollowfaust edition. Which would be cool. Which would be super cool. So, is there any other creations? Oh yes, my favorite. We haven't talked about my favorite.
We'll talk a little bit about. There's not a whole bunch of time left, so I'm not going to go over everything that's in the books or that is related to Hollowfaust, but there are a few that I do want to bring up. The first one I'm going to bring up is actually going back to how the necromancers like to repurpose things from the outside world for their city. And let me bring up the art real quick. There are these creatures in Scarlands known as corpse hounds.
Oh yeah.
Just gonna plop that up there. They are amazing scavengers, and they can strip a body of its flesh not quite as fast as flesh strippers, the hordes of rats, which I would say they probably also are super interested in. I would be if I was a necromancer.
Yeah, I was on the bounty list, I was like, where's flesh strippers on the bounties of things I'll pay for? I'm so disappointed that they weren't there.
But they have tried to domesticate, or at least bring in these hounds so that they can put them, my guess is in the Underfaust, in this area where they are taking bodies and stripping them of flesh, because again, most of the undead are skeletons. They don't want zombies running around squeaking people out. And so they've repurposed these natural scavengers to do part of the work for them. But as we've talked about, the city's been under siege 4 times in 150 years. Does that sound right, Sarah? Are my numbers right?
4 times in just under 140 years, yeah.
And so during sometime probably during the Divine War, a necromancer by the name of, hold please, because I need to find it.
And were you talking about Yggdrasil?
Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil.
He has no vowels in his name. Right? Seriously.
Consider why. Why is a vowel sometimes? Yggdrasil conceived of this idea probably during the Divine War, during a siege, but outside of Hollowfaust. So this came to Hollowfaust afterwards, but they were like, yes, this is amazing. These are the siege undead, and they're three separate undead created from one body. So you have the skeleton.
It's gonna be a humanoid body,
right?
So you can't do it with weird things, but it's generally human or humanoid.
Right.
One body, 3 undead.
Yeah. And they're not called siege undead because they siege something, although you could say that.
Yeah.
But essentially, like during a siege, oh, look, we have all these dead bodies. What do we do with it? Let's make more and more and more rather than just raising them as zombies. Look, we can do this 3 times. So they take the skin, they take the meat, and then they take the skeleton, and they make 3 separate ones. So you have, let me make sure I name these right. You have Bone Man, who's the one on the left.
But they're not just a skeleton. They're like a skeleton upgunned a little bit because they also have these like nails and sharp things and barbed wire and stuff. So they do more damage than your standard skeleton because they're meant to. These aren't servitor skeletons. These are weapons. So they've basically weaponized these skeleton warriors.
Right.
With creepy stuff.
Yeah. And then you've got the Meat Man, who is essentially all the muscle, all the viscera, all of that stuff that they've put back together after stripping it off the bone. And they've like shoved blades into its arms and like given it those same like protrusions and stuff.
It was the Meat Man when I got this book. You know, this is back in 2003 or something.
Yeah.
So this is all from Second Creature Collection. I saw this picture and I was just like, this is the most horrible and awesome monster I think I've ever seen. And
it's one of those situations where like the art is amazing.
It's black and white. I'm glad this is black and white.
Yet it's black and white because you got to imagine this is what you're seeing is not skin. That is all muscle and gore,
tendon, and there's no skeleton structure in there either. So it's like held together with, I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like they've like jammed sticks in it.
Yeah.
To help as bones, but like I've always assumed a lot of it is magic that animates it.
But he's undead. He's not a construct.
Right. And then
so this isn't a flesh golem.
And then you have Sandman, which is the skin. He's the one on the right. This is the skin of the thing, and to fill it, they put sand in it, which kind of leaks out through its seams and is all sorts of also gross and disturbing to see.
Yeah.
So one of the more fun, as a DM, probably as a player, seeing some of the more fun undeads that could be encountered in Hollowfaust. One of the other ones that made it into the new creature collection is the Thunderbones. So I'm going to actually first throw up the 3rd edition art for it.
And just the Siege Undead are CR2, which is a bit higher than your standard zombies and skeletons.
Right. Yeah, they're not like super difficult, but it's also really efficient for the necromancers to just be like, we're going to churn these out instead of just zombies.
And this one you're showing is the what again?
So this is a Thunderbones.
Thunderbones, okay.
And let me, where is Thunderbones? Oh, I thought I had it up. Hang on. Thunderbones. Okay. So they are large humanoid skeletons made entirely of black iron.
Yeah.
The bones are covered with small silver runes, and I'm actually going to bring up the new art for them.
Oh, the new art is amazing.
Yeah. Also cool. There we go.
And they're CR7, so...
Yeah, they're not something to mess with.
And they're intelligent. These aren't your mind... I mean, they're not... There's, again, no spirits in them. But I hope. They're not supposed to anyway. but these aren't your int of 6.
Yeah, they have a 13 intelligence. Yeah, they can they can actually speak, unlike most skeletons. They can speak the language of the creator, and they're implacable and utterly loyal, obeying only the creator. Once they are sent in motion, they pursue their goals relentlessly until their creator is on hand to prevent excessive violence. I just love that. They're just like, they're essentially the barbarian skeletons of the undead world, because they will just fuck you up until someone says stop. And
they will
not
fight
just someone. Yeah, not just someone, but like their creator. I'm assuming the creator could be like, hey, listen to Joe. Joe's going to tell you what to do, and therefore the Thunderbones would do that. But for the most part, they're pretty nasty.
But expensive to make, so they're rare as well. You're not going to find 50 Thunderbones anywhere. You can find like maybe 2 amongst an army of undead. Siege undead, cheap to make. Not as cheap as zombies, but still pretty cheap. These guys, mucho, spell very expensive build components. So, and time. So, but still freaking cool. So
we did talk about, I'm not going to go into it too much, the Osseous Calabra, which is the big siege engine made out of gigantic bones.
Yeah.
It's actually an undead. That one's really cool. There's a bunch of creatures that are in the Hollowfaust book. A couple of things you might run into in the Ghost Quarter. The Blood Wraith, which is kind of a more powerful wraith. They don't like fear the sunshine as much. They're not at a disadvantage or anything like that when there's bright sun. The Spectral Revenant might be something you run into.
And most of these haven't been converted to 5th edition yet. So
well, officially haven't.
Officially. So
I might have
maybe some vault titles?
And am getting ready to release them, but I'm also waiting to find out what's in Dead Man's Rust, because I don't
Dead
want
Man's
to
Rust first, yeah.
Yep. So in conversations with Travis to figure that out. Keep an eye out for these. There are also a couple of creatures that are not undead or affiliated with Hollowfaust in the book, as far as like allies or undead that are servants. One of them is a subspecies of Slytherin. Where did it go? There he is.
Oh, the fire
spitter.
Fire spitters, yeah. They're Dunewalkers, which is the Slytherin that worship Thulkas. But they've got like upgunned with some extra abilities.
Right. Daywalkers.
Dunewalkers. They're called now.
That's right. So they're like a sub-breed?
Sub-breed.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And then there was like another, what is the Wherein? Oh, I'll bring up the Risen, because the Risen is also
Risen.
Here's the Risen.
So basically, if you've got a creepy undead, and if there's stuff from, and what's great is if there's stuff from other campaign settings, you can pull them in too.
Yeah.
Anything without a spirit could go in Hollowfaust. Anything with one could go in Glibidato. So this is like, all your weird shit from even Loft or Daimir setting would fit in insanely well in this area. And whether it's in Hollowfaust itself or something creepy that's out on the Festering Fields or the Mounds of Man, or this whole region basically is just rife with necrotic energy and
So, I think the Risen are interesting because they're actually not undead. They're constructs. So it's
they're constructs.
One of the few things that the necromancers make that are not empowered with undead. They're actually powered by willful fire spirits that animate the Risen, and they are like a much more powerful. I mean, they're not undead, so I can't call them a zombie, but they have that like zombie-ish look. But they're like CR10 in the original book, and they are the shock troops that they send into battle. So like during these sieges where the Sutak have come in and tried to they're very much like flesh golems. They're just a little they're just a little different. They're powered rather than by what is the school that powers
enchantment?
A golem. I can't think of the school. What do you
I want
think?
to say
enchantment?
it's enchantment.
Could be. This is actually like an elemental. This is an elemental that they put inside of it. And
so this is more conjuration than a golem would be.
So
so that's the cool thing about the Hollowfaustian army. And as much as it gets just massacred every time there's a siege, every time it's cooler and has more interesting weird, because all these necromancers are just experimenting. So there may be just 2 or 3 of something interesting, but it's like Bob the Necromancer's latest experiment. And it's like, and we've got this creature who just sort of shambles out of the Underfaust and stands there at the gate like, I'm here now too, because they're just making stuff.
And probably the last thing that I'll bring up that they make, there are a bunch more, but another interesting one is the Bone Golem, which when you look at the art I've never really understood it because they call it a bone golem and they're made out of bone, but it's almost like it was bone ground down into dust and then molded to look like this, is what I'm gathering, because it never really says what is the procedure to make one of these, but obviously that does not look like bone. And so they and it talks about how it just like it's being just kind of like flakes apart over time. But these things are made to be necromancer's servants. They just walk around and do what the necromancer needs them to do. And so if you see a fairly powerful necromancer wandering through the streets, they may very well have one of these carrying their groceries or their books or whatever.
This is most likely the kind of servant you're going to have on those ambassador guys who are off in the other area, because they're not considered. They're not going to be like, oh, it's a skeleton walking the streets. They they kind of pass more as kind of a weird magical servant. Yeah. And I think that's why, maybe one of the reasons why they don't look like an undead and why they're not strictly an undead, because a lot of us, undead aren't allowed in the city. It's not. It's a golem. Golems are allowed. Yes. Yeah. Even though it's made of bits. Doesn't look like it's made of bits, so I suspect that may be a good reason why, or at least the reason I just made up.
No, that totally makes sense. And in the third edition, golems didn't have con and they didn't have intelligence, but in the description it talks about how it has like a residual intelligence, maybe from the spirit of the dead that the multitude of bones that was made to make it, from those various bodies, but that intelligence isn't the spirit. Like, it may be from like these residual memories in it, but it doesn't cross that line of you can't make this because it has absolutely right on the edge. But that intelligence and leaned over it. Right. That intelligence makes it very easy for them to follow the commands of their masters or their creators.
And even taking an elemental and putting it into one of these, it's like, is that technically? Well, it's not a mortal spirit. It's allowed. Right. So I can't say there aren't necromancers who aren't just walking all the way up to that one rule you're not allowed to break. And
the reason it does say that the spirit, the fire spirits are willful, but how are you gonna? You know what I mean? Like, they don't talk, so you can't ask them after the fact.
but I imagine that Barrio is like got an eye out going, right, what are you doing?
But it's another great adventure plot. So he brings adventurers in. He's like, so I think this necromancer's being a little squeaky with the law, and you need to go find out for me. Here's
go investigate that or whatever. Yeah, so lots of potential there, because I'm sure that not every necromancer in Hollowfaust is on the up and up.
Right.
So lots, or these things could show up in Glivedotel.
Yep.
So, and next time we're gonna start digging more into the horns, I think.
Yeah, that's
hopefully
just a jump that way. So that way. Looking at the map, it's that way.
It's 100 miles away, roughly. Very roughly. And into the horns. Okay. Anything else?
So that's
I cover everything.
That's gonna wrap it up for today. I haven't seen any questions come up, so Sarah, why don't you do your intro outro?
Hi, I'm Sarah Stewart. I am a Scarlands creator on Slurcing Vault, and I wrote a bunch of stuff, including this novel, Vigilant, and this module, Frostlands of Fenrilik. I was part of that. Both of us were. And I also have a new title on the Slurcing Vault that just came out last week called Yenny's Journal, Frostlands of Fenrilik Yenny's Journal. So it's a supplement. Pay what you want. So if you plan to run Frostlands or haven't even decided if you want to pick up Frostlands, you can pick that up, get it, whatever, and pay a penny. I don't care. I mean, I care, but I don't care that much. And then take a look, and it gives you a taste of what you'll see in Frostlands of Fenrilik if you've decided. And Frostlands is on sale right now anyway, so today's a great day to check those out. And you can find me here. You can find me on other places. If you really want to find me, just chat or whatever. You can find Fran.
At Ronald Valor.
I'm not on. I apologize. I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Discord.
I mean, you have an account, but it doesn't really do anything to message you on there if you're not looking at it. So.
Yeah. But do DMs work on? Do you get notified? I don't even know.
I don't think so. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, check out my stuff on Drive-Thru RPG.
And I shared the links to those. Definitely go check them out. Go pick up Frostlands of Fenrilik this weekend while it is on sale, as well as a bunch of other Onyx Pass stuff is I can't remember how much I think it's a varying percent, but they have a bunch of stuff on sale. Go check it out.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, go ahead.
I would say Yenny's Journal isn't on sale, but it's pay what you want, so
it's on sale enough.
Yeah.
And I'm Jeremy Hochhalter. You can find me on Twitter at WHPubs, here on Twitch and on Facebook at WH Publications, or you can head over to WHPublications.com to keep up with all of the crap I do, I guess. I feel like I gave spoilers away, but I mean, it is also the point of the show. I have Horrors of Hollowfaust is coming out here soon. Maybe I'll actually finish it because I keep saying I have all the stuff coming out and then something comes up and I don't get it done. So
I still gotta finish that Slytherin book I talked about last July?
March? Yeah, something like that.
I don't know. Well, maybe it was June. I don't know. I was working on it forever. When did the Slytherin was like the 4th episode, right? So April? I don't know. It just backburnered because of Frostlands, and then yeah, it's just been backburnered. But I will, and I'm also still didn't get the art, so I need art for that. Waiting on art. Art is hard to acquire.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
So it might go artless, like Yenny's Journal basically went artless. It's got we bought a cover and that was it.
Yeah. So, yeah. And some things like the journal, like you're writing about this person's tale rather than trying to show here is this monster for you to show like your characters and stuff. It's
well, we used the same art from Frostlands. We were allowed to, so we could just like here's the crawling glacier again.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I was like, could we get character art? Because we had stat blocks and just obtaining it, like it would have been another month out. So I was just like, yeah, maybe we'll do an update someday. But we're not even, we're paying what you want, so
yeah, you
get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Well,
but you also bring up a good point, because if you are interested in publishing for either Frostlands of Fenrilik or any of the Scarland stuff, so Gelspad, Fenrilik, there are art packs on Solution Vault. Go check those out. They are free for you to use. I believe you can only use them on the Solution Vault. You can't use them on DM's Guild or on Drive-Thru. Yeah. I mean, it's technically Drive-Thru, but you can't use it in a non Scarlands product.
Non-Solution, yeah.
Right.
But and you have to credit it in the thing. You credit it. But other than that, you can use them. There's tons of art.
Yeah.
So lots of cool stuff.
So go check that stuff out. Any other last thoughts before we let everyone go for the day?
We're good. Check out Rust.
Yeah, check out
Please back Rust.
Gonna share that one more time, and again, these will be in the.
Oh, and I said I'd say the number. Hit refresh.
Oh, that's
and
right.
The number is up to one more backer.
Yay!
I think 13,938.
I think we should totally take responsibility for that.
13,888.
Because of us.
So, I think it's. Did I say 230?
Onyx Path, you were welcome.
Yeah. At least one backer. Maybe two. I don't know. But yeah, we are just under $2,000 away from the goal, with admittedly 25 days left. But we'd really like to get to some stretch goals.
Yeah,
so.
It would be pretty amazing. Yeah. Definitely cannot.
And we'll be talking about those more in the next few episodes. So
yeah.
Stretch goals, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, we will let everyone go. Thanks for watching this week, and we will see you next week, where we'll be delving into the Hornsaw Forest. Yay! Until then, stay safe, take care of yourselves and of each other, and we will see you then. Bye.